Hi, Geekscapists. Welcome to the brand new Geekscape special, all about the Book of Boba Fett Season 1. I'm Jonathan London, and if this is your first Geekscape, I ask that every time I start a show. If this is your first Geekscape, is it? We talk movies, video games, comic books, all that stuff, but today, well, this is a special all about the Book of Boba Fett. Season 1 on Disney Plus. It just wrapped up. Ian and I, we might have some things to say about it. Some people love it, some people not so much. But you did get what you asked for, which was a series all about your childhood favorite bounty hunter. Um, that being said, was it what we expected? I don't think it was, but is that good or bad? We'll talk about it with Ian here in a bit. Again, if this is your first Geekscape, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe to the audio portion of the show. We're number 4 in Sri Lanka. Did you know that? Yes, we are. As far as film interview podcasts go, we have some awesome podcasts coming up for you all very soon. So watch this feed. We've been working on some great guests, and then go back to the feed. We've had some amazing episodes, as well as like more of these specials, deep diving on some of your favorite releases. And we got a ton coming up, from the Batman to Peacemaker Season 1, like ending next week. Ian's going to be on here a bit, and we're going to be breaking it down. We got a lot of work to do. That's what we call it. We're going to call it work. Got a lot of work to do coming up. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe to the audio podcast, whatever podcatcher you want. It's always free, and you can always catch us in video form on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and now my LinkedIn, because I'm a working professional. Just search for Geekscape. You'll find us. But let's get it started. This is the Geekscape Boba Fett Season 1 special. Rock and roll. All right, Geekscapists, let's get down to business. This is the Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, Season 1 special here on Geekscape. There's already people in the chat room, and I never know how things are going to go. We're recording this thing on a Saturday afternoon. Ian's schedule got busy. This is the way it shook out, and I never know if we're going to have people watching us on a weekend, but they are, and that's great. Hopefully you're able to catch one of these live shows later on if you're listening on the podcast. Let's get right to it. As I said earlier, this is the Book of Boba Fett Season 1 special, so there will be tons of spoilers. This is the part of the show where I talk spoiler warning. So if you have not finished the season, what are you doing watching this? Because we're going to get a huge deep dive going on. So without further ado, here's my good friend Ian Kerner. Ian, I think we got some things to say about this season of the Boba Fett show that we've all been asking for since we were kids. Like, since we saw Boba Fett go out in Return of the Jedi, we were like, wait, that's not all we want to see of the Boba Fett. This character that's been on screen for 10 minutes and had like 3 lines, that's not all she wrote. That's such a cool character. Let's have him back.
Agreed.
Did we know what we were asking for, Ian?
Well, first of all, I do want to say to anyone listening, something that benefited a lot. My wife, who's a casual fan, not super fans like many of us, was one of those people. I understand, why do people love Boba Fett so much? He's barely on the screen. And they had that, I think it's called The Legacy of Boba Fett, the little special they have on Disney Plus. It's really worth watching. Sure. It shows how Boba Fett's fandom developed from the very get-go of concept and just all of it, all the popularity, everything. And that's worth watching. Before you've seen Book of Boba Fett, after, it doesn't matter when, it's worth watching. This show, more than maybe any other I've ever seen, definitely played into fan service on a massive scale. Maybe not always in the best way. Pacing is a major problem with this show. Am I disappointed? Yes. Am I glad it exists? Still, yes. I'm kind of landing in a place of, and I think that you and I ultimately come to the same place of, this was Mandalorian season 2.5, and I think it would have been served a lot better being Mandalorian season 3 with aspects of this interspersed in it. You know,
Well,
I think
I have a lot to say.
I know
I
you
do.
I
I
think
wrote
that
you a very long email with many points. Hold on, we're pausing because Matt Kelly just added another podcast to the Geekscape Network. That's the siren right there. So we're now at 48,000 shows. Sorry, Ian, you have yet to get your own dedicated show, but that's the siren.
I think that the tricky thing about the show was, you know, as you said, we've been waiting since 1983, Return of the Jedi, for the story of Boba Fett. And so much of the extended universe, now legend stuff, you know, which I always took to be pretty definitive, Boba Fett survived, you know. The Bounty Hunter books were fantastic, you know, things like that. I felt pretty confident, and was episode 5, season 1 Mandalorian, though, were his boots, and that ended up being the case. And
you're talking about when Fennec is shot, and we see that play out obviously in episode.
No, they caught us up, and the thing is, and then he shows up, and clearly he's demonstrating skills and some garb and weapons that indicate that he's had some major dealings with the Tusken Raiders, right?
Right.
So, you know, in terms of fan service, the show went into some great detail, giving us the in-between pieces. There were definitely some things about that surprised me. I think that they had a big problem. They knew they wanted to do the present. They knew they needed to show us how he got there, and at the same time do the Mandalorian stuff. And I think you feel this way too. The whole show would have been a lot better. I mean, you say intersperse the stuff in 5 and 6 through 1 through 4, however you want to look at it. But if it was a cohesive show, that it was, this is what Boba Fett's doing, this is what Din Djarin's doing, this is what Grogu's doing, you know, to me, that's season 3 of The Mandalorian. Structure the whole thing differently. I think the big problem is to have all those things going on and doing Boba Fett flashbacks would have been, I mean, how do you do that? I think there was a way, and they didn't figure it out, and that would have been a much better show.
Ian, can you move forward? You were actually pretty good when you're close to that microphone, and you fill out a nice frame. You're a handsome guy for you video viewers. Okay, I had a lot to say, and in episode 1, I started kind of being like, wait, things are a little wonky here, and I could not have been more hopeful for this season because I am a Robert Rodriguez fan. Robert Rodriguez is pretty influential to me. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm one of the people who really enjoyed Battle Angel. I went to see it, I enjoyed it, and I was like, I'd love to get a sequel to this. Yeah,
I enjoyed that. Yeah,
and Robert to me is someone who, you know, getting into film, coming from Austin, he's a local hero, and I love his modern westerns. And when I hear that he's going to do the Book of Boba Fett, and it's Robert Rodriguez, great. I don't care if it is its own thing. It was not advertised as Mandalorian season 3, even though I'd heard that was some of the conversations that were happening on set, where some people thought that they were shooting Mandalorian season 3.
Well, now we know why.
Yeah, and I'm down with a dedicated Boba Fett show. I'm even down with a dedicated Boba Fett show in Jabba's palace on Tatooine, which, beyond going back and getting Slave 1 and the armor, which you already had at the end of Mandalorian season 2, I didn't know why he was returning to Tatooine. But that being said, it set up for a great. Hold on, it set up for a very cool modern western. I wanted more of that. What was the thing that I kept saying?
Well, you've said to me many times that, you know, they don't spend enough time on Tatooine. They don't go there enough. You know, we need more Tatooine.
Yeah, let's get it. I hope the Obi-Wan series, is like half Tatooine. I hope it's 3/4 Tatooine.
Well, I think we can expect Tatooine in the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah, it's not like it's any cheaper to shoot in a bunch of sand.
No.
And then you've got this virtual set, and we'll get to the shortcomings of the virtual set that started to make themselves apparent on this.
We were discussing Robert Rodriguez, and I think that, you know, if it had been one episode, it's one thing, but consistently, every single one of his episodes is off. Like, the action does not pace well. It's astoundingly so. It's like the action is boring,
and he
in
is
every
an
one of his
action
episodes.
director.
I'd love for you to explain to me because like 1 was meh, 3 was meh, 2 was great, 4 was way better than 1 and 3.
Loved 4. I actually really enjoyed a lot of parts of 4. I don't think the story makes sense in pieces of 4. Some of it's very head scratching,
right?
But I don't think story works a lot in a lot of these episodes. I wrote Ian basically a book of Jonathan squabbles before the episode where I said, hey, these are the talking points, and I might as well just start getting to them. Some of y'all are commenting in the chat, and I love that. And Andy backs me up on the whole Tatooine thing. I think a lot of us agree with it. Where Andy on Facebook says, "Please, there's a whole universe out there." I agree wholeheartedly. I've argued that since the episodes 1 through 3, the prequels. I think that it was weird to have so much Tatooine there in the prequels, or to have Anakin come from there, especially since that's where the twins are then hidden. You literally hid the twins, or at least Luke, on Anakin's home planet.
Here's the thing: the fact that it's Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru calls out an Anakin connection there. So I think that's why that did have to happen.
Well,
Anakin needed to come from there for that to make any sense.
And back to the argument of interspersing all of the Star Wars Disney Plus characters into one series. Edwin Black says, small cuts to Din and Grogu during Book of Boba Fett would have been fine, with Mandalorian Season 3 filling in those scenes later. That would have been great. Taking the focus off the titular character for 2 entire episodes was not a great idea. And we'll get to those episodes 5 and 6 and how they really derail the story that we have. But let's actually start with those first 4 episodes and talk about the story that we actually have at that point, because I think the problems start kind of early and become very clear and bigger as they go on. The first one is like, you've got Boba Fett. We saw him at the tag at the end of Mandalorian Season 2. He shoots you see him take over Jabba's palace from Bib Fortuna. He sits in the throne and he's established himself now as the daimyo of Tatooine. He's going to be the gang boss of Tatooine. All right, great. That's no doubt going to have some rivals. We saw that in the trailer. I'm down. Let's see what Boba Fett does with the rivals. And we see them pretty quickly. We see these 2 Hutt twins, who I really love. The Hutt twins are fun, but later on we do find out that we also have the Pikes establishing a trade, a spice syndicate that goes through Tatooine. We also see rival gang bosses that are sharing Mos Vespa with Boba Fett. Now we have kind of a loose, like not even tiered, bunch of bad guys that Boba Fett's going to have to deal with. He does not actually go about dealing with them at all. And I don't understand how a lot of this real estate got spent. The whole, flashback thing was a little fat. And a lot of the wasted real estate that I thought was promising, and we'll find out later, like I think they could have used it, was flashbacks to things like Jango Fett's ship from episode 2. And you see a young cloned Bubba on Kamino looking at the slave one, Kamino, like flight away. And that didn't really tie in ever again. And they showed it multiple times that they had flashbacks, not just to his time with the Tuskens. You got flashbacks to him as a kid. They even recreated him holding Jango Fett's head. None of that stuff mattered in the end. And I didn't really. Did it tie in for you, Ian? Am I taking crazy pills?
No, you know where that mattered. It's the over. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for the fact that going completely away from Boba Fett for episodes 5 and 6 sort of displaced the narrative, because the narrative ultimately very much was about he hasn't really felt like he belonged with anyone since his father died. And that's what he got from the Tuskens. I was very disappointed when you saw the Tuskens got completely wiped out. Because in the earlier episodes, I figured maybe this was all about doing it for the Tuskens, saving Tatooine for the Tuskens. Mm-hmm. And I think you in among your many points, I think that was one of the issues that you had was, who is he saving Tatooine for? Does he care about the Mos Espans? Until it's pointed out to him, he doesn't seem like he really does.
He says
and
it
if he does,
times.
why does he?
He says, these are my people. The spice is hurting them. We never see evidence of the spice hurting any of them.
Well, I want to talk about that at greater length. I want to talk about the spice.
Yeah, well, even when he's like in episode 7, charged with taking a stand, he wants to do it from his palace, and he's actually talked into doing it from Mos Vespa. How are those his people?
So here's a big issue that I have. We know that spice is mined on Kessel. Yep. We've seen in many places spice pops up. We know spice is an illegal drug. They hit it a bit more in Clone Wars than in the movies. But it's definitely an illegal drug, so you could make certain assumptions. I mean, I think there's one extended universe thing that has some telepathic abilities. It's a Han Solo story. But for the most part, let's go with a legal drug. Mined on Kessel, not mined on Tatooine. Now, let's all call this out. It's much easier to call out for people this year because of Dune. Spice was a nod from George Lucas to Dune.
Sure.
You know, George Lucas, it's not even a question. He borrowed, this was, it was all a lot of homages. We have a desert planet. They're making references to spice. If you told me, much like Dune, that spice was mined on Tatooine, I would understand it. Okay? Tatooine is a fucking shithole. All right? Seriously. There aren't that many people on Tatooine.
No.
If spice, if the whole point is its distribution because they want to distribute spice on Tatooine, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Especially
it wouldn't be a lot of money.
Especially if it's the place of the universe where, if there's a center of the universe, this is the place where it's furthest from, which is paraphrasing what Luke says in episode 4. Like,
no, it's the outer rim. Okay, if you tell me that for some reason Tatooine is a distribution hub and it's important in hyperspace lanes, that would make sense within the Star Wars of it, because that's an actual thing in computing everything, and it's jump points, it's all that could make some sense, but that's not developed down to they actually are on convoys going across Tatooine and Tusken territory with spice.
Why would you need to? Why
do they even have to stop there?
And as Andy says,
it doesn't make any
sense.
Why
are tourists going there? This isn't a tourist destination. Like, why are they going to Mos Vespa?
It makes no sense to me. That's something I have a big problem with, because this is what I want to say. Going into this episode, and obviously we're going to get more into it, but let's just say right now, and there's a reason why I'm saying this now. Seemingly, it's all settled. Well, it isn't all settled. Okay, if you know the Star Wars mythology, particularly, and if you read the comics, what's going on there, it's always been the case. There've been a lot of different crime lords and organizations. Mm-hmm. The Hutts are one of them. There was Black Sun. There's the Pike Syndicate. Crimson Dawn is a big thing. Okay, it's at the end of Solo. It's set up. I think that Kira's showing up somewhere. I expected her in this show, maybe at the end. Probably in a later season. That's my opinion. I came away from the show going like, what? It was wrapped up tight enough that they could not do another season. That'd be fine. I think they're going to. I think the biggest story becomes about Kira and Crimson Dawn. I think that what they've set up is, look, here's the bottom line. Whatever the rationale that is not clear for why it's so important to have Tatooine, it's still important to anyone that's taking the place of the Pike Syndicate. Yeah. And I think that will be Crimson Dawn. But that's going to happen. It's money. That's what it's about. So it's not going to go away. So there's that.
How is it hurting their people? We've not seen that.
Well, exactly, because do people use spice? We don't see it. I agree.
We don't see people ODing on it.
Is it the crime of coming through? I don't see it. Was it hitting people in Freetown? No, because he's not even letting it happen to begin with.
It's not even affecting the Jennifer Beals' bar, which I think that bar could have played a much more important role.
Much bigger role. A lot of us thought she was double dealing. Maybe she was making a power move after episode 1.
It would have been a great opportunity to do it. It would have been a great opportunity to be like, oh, she's the big bad.
Whether she's the big bad, whether she's in with the Pikes, whether she's in with Crimson Dawn, would have made a whole lot of sense.
So, Ian, what you're saying is something that I wanted to touch on. That is, Boba Fett falls for a lot. He gets tricked by the Pikes several times. He gets tricked by the Hutts. They make it all the way into his palace with an assassin. He gets tricked by his rival gang leaders. He gets tricked by literally everybody in this show. And by the time episode 7 comes around, we're still supposed to hold this guy to a lofty standard
in the tag
of the show.
in the tag for Mandalorian season 2 at the end there, when we saw that, when cool, but what is that about? Why does Boba Fett want to be Jabba the Hutt? I thought his conversation with Fennec in the flashback made a lot of sense, and I liked it. Did I buy it? I'm not sure, but I liked it. I liked the idea of, okay, we're going to be our own bosses. We're going to do something for ourselves.
Yeah, we don't. I'm not going to get killed on some idiot's errand. I got it too.
I liked that. I liked the idea that Bib Fortuna's weak. It shouldn't have been him. You know, I like that stuff. That's interesting. I wish I saw Boba Fett is more savvy about what's going on out there with the other crime families, including Crimson Dawn. I felt that, you know, it was really interesting as you're watching the flashback stuff, and it's hard to tell how much time's gone by. And clearly, boom, they're caught up. So he spent 4.5 years more with the Tuskens.
Yes. I
didn't know that until suddenly, oh, guess what? It made it resonate more for me that, okay, no, he's truly that, but they didn't do a great job in that jump. They could have done a better job. Honestly, and not I know this is a staple and sort of a trope, but it would have worked better for me if throw a scene or two in, let him have mated with somebody, you know, like let him have had a true family, let him have adopted the young kid, you know, like just a little more to show it was a true life and family he had there, and 5 years went by.
And those are his people. Those are his actual people. Those are the people you actually have to put in danger. Yeah. Because the most Vespens weren't really in. I mean, they were just chilling.
Now, and I think I already said this, but again, and then to wipe them all out. I mean, show me fine. They wiped out that tribe. Shouldn't there be more Tusken tribes? They reached out to them. I mean, show me that. Make it about that. That would have made sense to me.
And it would have been nice and an opportunity to integrate the city versus desert rivalry that we only got in mention in a few places in episode 7, where it's like, oh, this is a thing where the city people and the desert people in Freetown don't like each other. Okay, well, that's sentimentally nice, but episode 1. So at the end of episode 1, Ian, I just didn't feel like there were enough seeds planted to carry a season, and a lot of this stuff just felt like rocks skipping off the surface rather than actual things being planted that we were going to see throughout.
What they did with the Tuskens until they killed them all, for me, okay, I'm seeing what this is. And if it was about that, it was about, you know, I know it might have felt a little bit too Dune, but desert power, freeing the Tuskens, you know, even things like when they get into things that I never heard before about that, you know, it wasn't always a big desert. It used to be water here. Tatooine was a paradise. Tuskens have been around all this time. They're the natives, you know. That's interesting. The fact of Boba Fett, you know, identifying with them. And by the way, and I need to say this because I felt it was called out. It was in the Mandalorian before, but it's really called out strongly with the Grogu part of this idea of, you know, you don't have to be born into it. You know, I mean, you don't have to be born into being a Mandalorian. You don't have to be born into being a Tusken. It becomes a way of life and a culture, and you accept it and you become part of it. And that's what you now are. And
we'll get to the Grogu lone wolf and cub scene, but it's also planted. You don't have to be just one thing, whether it's a Mandalorian or a Jedi. You can be both. And they definitely showed their hand in episode 5, and we'll get to episode 5 because there's no way Grogu's not going to have a lightsaber and the chainmail.
The question is it the dark saber, or is that just too big for him? Is Grogu the Mandalorian as prophecy? Doesn't that make sense?
It does, and we'll see what happens in Mandalorian 3, and we're also still going to avidly be watching that at 2 a.m. when it hits, so it'll be fine. But I still want to talk about some of the things that were in these first 4 episodes didn't fly. We all wanted to see the Patton Oswalt patented escape from the Sarlacc, and we got it. It was great. It was simplistic. I mean, that sounds like an insult, but it was very easy to escape from the Sarlacc. The Sarlacc posed no further danger, and he escaped by punching out the side of it and then digging out some sand in his armor, which for some reason then in episode 4, he goes back to search inside the Sarlacc. That's like if Ian had left the house without his phone, knew he left the house without the phone, but then when he's like, oh, where's my phone? He went back and searched the house for the phone. He knew he had it when he left the house.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could argue he was kind of messed up and all that, but it should have been said. There should have been something. The Jawas took it.
He wasn't too messed up to get his shit back, Ian.
Yeah, I'm saying he never tracks that. He doesn't find out. I mean, and I felt like they'd sort of written themselves into a corner. So he was with the Tuskens, and we didn't know about his armor. I guess since we see him just when Din Djarin just took off with the armor, It's like he just figured this out because he just come to town, so he heard about it. You know, I would have liked to have seen it. I would have liked to have seen a bar scene in which someone's talking about this marshal in which Moss was it? But now Freetown.
Call it Freetown, but
okay.
Yes, you could say Boba Fett's back, but he's
or someone's in Boba's armor, or, you know,
someone's in Boba's armor, something where he puts 2 and 2 together. It's he should know it's not in the Sarlacc. Like, it's not in the Sarlacc. Yeah. I like the Sarlacc sequence. I think it's cool. I think it's cool that he shoots the Sarlacc.
It obviously happened because he ended up right there, and the timing of it's like, okay, sort of convenient. So it obviously happened, and they didn't. Maybe it's a deleted scene, whatever. But it's just we didn't see it.
Yeah. Edwin Black says, you know what? Like, give him a break. Boba isn't an experienced crime boss. He's an experienced bounty hunter and solo criminal, but not a boss. And that makes me think that he's like, this should be like an Office episode where we see like an incompetent boss plotting or like trying to become a boss. Like, he's Steve Carell in The Office at this point, because literally everyone in the show tricks him.
That's right.
Like, they trick him. Stephen Root's character comes and tells him he's got a problem. He shows up. It's not as he was advertised. He tricked him.
Yep.
Like, there's every character in the show except Fennec Sand puts one over on this guy.
I do. I like, and to Edwin's point, I like the idea that he isn't that experienced. That's not his thing. But, you know, and you know, his whole thing is like, all right, you got to make people afraid. But yeah, his motivations are just odd. He want to help people. Is that what a crime lord does? I mean, what exactly is the motivation here?
And
are
Andy
you liberating things and shutting down crime?
Yeah, and Andy has a good point. He says, hey, look, it's fine that he got tricked, but then like start learning and getting savvier and show progression. He gets tricked right up until right through episode 7. He's getting tricked repeatedly. We should just add.
In fairness, that isn't 7 episodes of getting tricked.
It's like we should really, it's 5 episodes of getting tricked. We should just add like Benny Hill music to this and be like, here's all the times that Boba looks at somebody and goes, I am Boba Fett, and it's threatening, but it's like, yeah, dude, we've heard about you, and like, short of like taking your cape and putting it over your head and punching you in the I mean, literally, Black Krrsantan makes it all the way to his back to tank. I mean, how are these mods really his these Gamorreans? Well, we learned in episode 7 how bad fighters they are, and they're terrible guards.
I definitely agree. How did Black Krrsantan? I mean, I guess, you know, you don't think of Wookiee as stealth, but Wookiee's claws, like they can scale things. So I guess that's what it is. I would have liked to have seen that.
But knowing that, in that the Hutts did that and tried to assassinate him, all is fine, all is forgiven. And for some reason that is not justified, the Hutts are now going to leave Tatooine. I think that they should have been the only crime bosses in this show. The Pike Syndicate, it just didn't make sense. You either got the Hutts or the Pike Syndicate finding some value here, but it got really muddy. And the bad thing is it actually gave 2 villains that now Boba Fett could get tricked by, because he gets tricked by both.
I agree.
And the erosion of this character is rough. And people are saying, hey,
it's interesting you say erosion, because it's a character that we only have in our minds. Like, all you know is Boba Fett's an amazing bounty hunter. He's a badass. That's all you really know.
I get that, but what's the problem? But let's not talk about the Return of the Jedi. Guy gets duped into getting kicked into the Sarlacc when Han Solo.
That was a chance thing.
I'm talking about the Boba Fett that we were promised in Mandalorian season 2. This is a guy who is full faculties. He's got his shit back. He's got his armor back. He's kicking ass. And now he's going to take over Tatooine. And as he says to Fennec Sand, as we now know is a flashback, his goal is to be the boss. Okay, great. That is the promise of episode 1. It becomes Steve Carell in The Office with a rocket launcher he's letting everyone off the hook. He is not being a crime boss. He's being a patsy. And we see it multiple times. And so by the time you get to episode 7, he's not a trustworthy protagonist. We got a respite from him in episodes 5 and 6, where we can actually see Mando being the promised like badass bounty hunter, which is, you know, I understand you cannot have Boba Fett being the Boba Fett we expected in Return of the Jedi, because Mando, that show took its lunch. It said, this is the bounty hunter who's limited dialogue, kicks ass, and is ruthless, and we see him softening. We get it. You had to do something different with Boba Fett, or you just get another Mandalorian show in different armor. Right? They definitely had to do it. I think making him a crime boss, fantastic. Make him the head of a syndicate, fantastic. Let's see that. It didn't happen.
Let's have a real sense of syndicate. Let's see that there's actual crime and people.
Oh,
the mods.
He's literally. I mean, he's doing everything short of stubbing his toe every 10 minutes in the show. And we're supposed to think that he's still progressing towards the goal of being a crime boss. No, we lose faith in this idea somewhere in episode 2. And then we're just watching to see if he's able to survive his mistakes for the next 3 or 4 episodes. And the mistakes there's lots of them, and episode 7 has a ton. Where did Slade? He's got the biggest killing machine on the planet in his ship, and you see him badass, guns down all these bikers he thinks are, responsible for the killing the Tuskens. Yeah, he got tricked. But where was it when he's able to pinpoint shoot a bunch of people off of speeder bikes? Where was it in that final battle? It sure would have helped against those 2 battle droids.
Mm-hmm. Like, hey, what about the Jaren ship for that matter? Maybe not the best bounty hunter ship, but why don't they just get in it and blow shit up?
Let's go. Where is that stuff? And I mean, where's Fennec she just leaves for 40 minutes to do something. She leaves for the main battle to do something that really could have waited. Those dudes weren't doing anything. They were sitting around playing dominoes.
Well, in theory, taking them out means no one else is coming because they're the bosses. I get that
is actually a scene that we should see earlier to know that. That
I agree. We should have seen them earlier. We should have seen them coordinating. I agree completely. I don't. Again, there's some story structure stuff
there's a lot of untrustworthy narration, and it's rough. Ian, I can go back to my list and just keep going.
Sure.
The list is long.
Well, and I have some things that weren't on your list that I want to talk about. I mean, look,
Ian, Cad Bane. What a beautiful opportunity for Cad Bane to have been introduced as the cliffhanger of episode 1 or episode 2, and suddenly everybody loses. The same way people lost their minds at the end of episode 6 and said, "Oh my God, this Clone Wars character who has a history with Boba Fett that's amazing." You can't rely on a show that came out 15 years ago that people watched when they were 8 years old as being something that any of us would have known.
That's right. I watched it when I was 8 years old.
Well, Ian, you and I, Geekscapists are cut from a little bit of a different cloth, but you know what I'm saying. This is a 15-year-old character that a lot of people didn't see, and maybe you caught up on Clone Wars. I think Clone Wars is good of what I've seen, and I definitely know this character, Cad Bane. But he has a history with Boba Fett, and that history has to be established. And for the people turning on Disney Plus who don't know Cad Bane, having him introduced in episode 1 or the cliffhanger episode 2, and using those flashbacks that I talked about of a young Boba Fett.
I would like to have seen that.
Save 1. Let's see the history of Cad Bane as a parallel to it. What the sad thing is, in the lead up to episode 7, we got this poster of artwork that is beautiful. This looks like a spaghetti western tapestry of the entire season. We got all the great characters. We got it. If that poster had been released in December and then been promised to, and everything that was promised in that poster had then been delivered from episode 1 on, that we get that tapestry, we get all these characters intermixing in this show, man, that show would have been an all-time Star Wars show. We get a little bit of Din, we get a little bit of Cad Bane, we get a little bit of Boba, we get a little bit of Black Krrsantan, we get all these characters in a Boba Fett show and these multiple storylines from the beginning, and we're just seeing how the fuse has been lit and how it's all going to shape, and then how it's going to play out in episode 7. It would have blown our minds. This felt hollow for a little bit. Like, it didn't feel like the stories were tight. I'm sorry, Ian. Am I hurting? Like, I'm trying really not to be negative on this.
No, you're not. Though I think you're spending a lot of time on saying the same thing.
They were playing with free money, man.
Sure.
But
again, you spend a lot of time saying the same thing. There's a lot of other points to make. I mean, look.
Okay, let's go.
I agree, and I've said, I think structure was off. I think it should have been, thought of differently. I've already said, I think conceptually, the Mandalorian season 3 and tell you Boba Fett story as part of it would have worked much better for me. There's a lot of stuff about, listen, when episode 5 first came out, I was wondering, maybe this is just Boba Fett was seen as a 6-episode season, and they threw a little bit of a, it's a little insert of, meanwhile, this is where the Mandalorian is, and that episode alone was just set up, and he's going to go off there, and we're not going to see Grogu. I was really confused by the Grogu training stuff. It's like, because the first scene with Grogu seemed like it was like they just got there, and then Luke had his thing, and then show me that montage, and that have been, there's been some time that's gone by since the end of Mandalorian when he left. It's at least a month, And yet, if you look at episode 6, it seems like everything's in one day. And one day Luke sat down with him, had that. I get that he's remembering stuff. Then the Mandalorian was there. They have their little training. And it's all the same day. That was weird for me. And maybe it was pacing. Maybe they did things in the wrong order. But because I felt like it should have been that Luke was spending weeks with him at least. And that happened. And that's fine. But that really bothered me. Did you feel that?
I was bothered by that episode. No, as a Star Wars show, the first half of that episode episode 6 is actually a lot of fun. I like the ants. I like the building of the Jedi Temple.
Yeah,
I like how it starts to lead into the sequel trilogy, although I'm not a fan of the sequel trilogy. I like that we're getting cohesive Star Wars. I don't have to like my Star Wars. I don't have to like everything in Star Wars.
No, I understand, but you see my point about the pacing of it, and again, if they had done it earlier and just shown, listen, this is what's happening with Grogu. I get that it's like here's your big surprise, but just instead of making it about that, just show it. And again, if it was The Mandalorian season 3, that's what it would have been. But it was a big surprise because in Boba Fett we got that, Yeah, I just think conceptually that was a bit off.
I find episode 5 to be a bit of a problem. I find it really
5,
feels,
not 6.
Yes, 5.
Okay.
Where you just get a Mandalorian episode. And I was invested in seeing where the narrative that we ended up with Boba Fett. Let's see where it goes. Let's play this thing out. I'm not getting exactly what I wanted, but it's a Boba Fett show, and it's Disney's, and it's Star Wars, and they can do what they want. Let's see how it plays out. And
I see that. I get that. It's scary to me how much better 5 was than the 4 before.
That being said, if you actually put that in a Mandalorian season, would that have been a good episode for you, Ian? If that was a Mandalorian episode? To spend half the time building an episode 1 pod racing ship or whatever the heck that was, and you would have liked to spend 20 minutes building.
I would have had some issues with it, but the Mandalorian has always had some of those issues in it. So listen,
episode 5.
My wife felt it was just fan service, and if you're not a super fan, you don't get it, because the stuff with the Mandalorians and all that was huge payoffs for me. And getting explanations of stuff and how everything works together with Bo-Katan's perspective and all that. I thought it was I really enjoyed that. But I do understand the criticism, including the criticism about so much time on that ship that is really cool and fast, but seems really pointless at getting bounties.
Oh, I can't wait for the beginning of Mandalorian season 3, where he's flying through space and there's a bunch of heads tethered to the back of that ship, and he's like, "Guess I'm bringing him in cold from now on because I can't fit him in here."
Well,
unless he's got pin particles, how the hell is he going to fit him in that damn thing?
Right.
He's not. He's going to kill everybody.
Well, you just made me think of something that I've been holding back, but in relation to, and it's jumping ahead, but even in relation to Cad Bane, is he dead? Here's the thing. I think back to Vader and Empire saying no disintegration. It's like, you know what? If it's not a disintegration, you don't know they're dead.
No disintegrations. Yeah. No disintegrations. Great. Yeah.
Because honestly, Cad Bane, in terms of the fight with Boba, he's dead, but is he? Where's his droid that, if you know the Cad Bane stuff, he always had his trusty droid. The joke, you made the joke about, he's just coming out of nowhere. He's walking miles and miles through the desert.
Cad Bane just wanders to the desert for a dramatic opening.
Odds are there's a ship not far away, and he has his trusty droid that saves his ass all the time that comes out and throws him in the back of the tank or mods him or whatever. I don't think Cad Bane's gone. I don't think he's dead. It doesn't.
You honestly don't think Cad Bane died in episode 7?
Maybe he did, but it seems like, why get rid of Cad Bane? He's a great character.
Because the writing at that point has shown evidence that the bad decisions are rampant.
I'm just saying that, why
would that not be just another bad decision that was made in this?
Maybe season? That's what I'm saying. Not definitely not. I'm just saying maybe not because nobody dies. Everyone ends up in a back of the tank. unless you're Gamorrean.
The Bacta tank cannot become this save-all thing.
I know, but I think it already has. Right?
Yeah, I wanted to see Black Krrsantan
it's back to
into
tank and modifications. That's it, right? Everyone that Fennec would have
or
been
both,
dead, but
or both as we get
right. Exactly.
No one survives episode 7 as valuable a character as they started that episode with. Episode 7 just really, it doesn't make Din look good as a fighter. It doesn't make it doesn't make Boba look good as a tactician. It doesn't make Fennec look good as a fighter. Like episode 7 just is a lot of characters you like making bad decisions.
Someone I know commented while watching in the middle said, Jesus Christ, they're just playing with action figures. And I think most people saw after Mandalorian season 1, that meme that was an old ad from the original AT-AT toy, and a couple kids playing with all the figures. And the meme is Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau writing The Mandalorian, but
which we
literally
loved when it was Mandalorian.
Look, one of my favorite shots in episode 7 is Boba Fett and Din Djarin flying over, picking everyone off. And they're like, that really is like playing with action figures. It's exactly like,
they're flying around with the rockets. I thought some of that stuff was cool. I'm not going to be critical of stuff like the spin. That's been something on the internet where like one of the mods is shooting a gun and he spins. I mean, just go back to episode 4. Obi-Wan Kenobi totally throws in a superfluous spin in his fight with Vader. I'm down with the spins. I'm down with all that stuff. It's fine. I'm talking about the actual character and story stuff not being consistent or building towards anything that's engaging or proves the argument that these characters are making. That Fennec narration when they're in this burnt out club and she's given nothing to do but narrate like a previously on Book of Boba Fett narration, and she's saying our people are throughout the city. They're not going to get the jump on us. Both things are lies because you see 4 people throughout the city and 2 Gamorrean guards with their back up against a cliff. Like, great strategist. Like, they're great. It's a great strategy, pals.
By the way, again, that's
and they won't get the jump on us. They got to jump on all of them. Every single one of those groups got the jump on them.
One of my biggest issues with the whole thing with him as the crime boss is the organization is just not as big as it should be.
No, we should have seen evidence of soldiers. We should have seen something more than a handful of people in an urban shootout. When the people of Freetown show up to save the day, which is a great moment, we should have seen them spread out and fight.
Mm-hmm.
The limitations of a digital set, we saw that in episode 3 with the Vespa ride, like chase. That's tough to do, on a set that doesn't actually move. Like, how much did you miss the Matrix 2 and 3 freeway in that sequence? Like, this is stuff that needs to be shot with some level of motion. That was, and I don't think it's a narrative problem. Like, there should have been a chase. I think it's cool. A chase. Let's catch this guy. The execution of it on a digital set is tough, and we saw that a lot. Man, I think we all wanted this to be something. Not else. I think some of these pieces. That's the thing I'm telling you. They were playing with free money. Everyone who made this movie or made this series is incredibly talented. Jon Favreau talented. Dave Filoni talented. Robert Rodriguez talented. Every actor. This is so many talented people. They all get put in a soup that the ingredients didn't turn out to taste that good, and
they put them in the wrong order.
They put them in the wrong order. Some of the decisions were a little off. We were bluffed a lot as an audience saying that these characters are tough or competent, and the evidence wasn't there that they were. The evidence was that
I like Mike's comment that they should have made the Rancor eat Cad Bane. That would have been interesting, and I like it, but it doesn't get Boba needed the win, right?
Right.
I mean,
Boba needed that win.
I like the idea, like Cad Bane's so fast, he keeps Jedis on their toes, so you can't beat him in a straight shootout. But the whole idea that Boba, to me, the way they did it, it was the sign of yes, because of the Tusken stuff, he has skills that are beyond what he was before, and that enables him to beat him. So again,
he's driven by fighting 4 people finally for the first time, and he has something to lose. I didn't feel that he had anything to lose once those Tusken Raiders were wiped out.
Well, that's what I've been saying to you.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
Shouldn't there be other tribes? Like, I don't get the whole these people, and we've both said the same thing. Like, I don't buy that he cares about those people. I don't get what the motivation is. When he went in the first few episodes, I thought, oh, the motivation is he's saving the Tuskens. If they're all gone, I don't get it.
Yeah, and Edwin says, and I agree with his point. I disagree on episode 7. Fennec is a pragmatic master assassin, not a soldier. She plays to her strengths. I agree, Edwin, but let's see her take out those leaders during or prior to that battle, so we know that there are no more orders that are going to be taken, that are going to be handed down.
Sure.
She takes them out after the battle. It's like those people got taken out. Like we don't really need the retribution at that point. And also, like, if she's a master assassin, put her on a rooftop. She's been on a rooftop several times in this series, and it's worked. Put her on a rooftop. Have her play to her strings. I agree with that criticism. Let's not have her in a street fight. Totally awesome. I agree. They might keep Bane alive for the Ahsoka series. Ian, we haven't really talked about what comes after this. Obviously, we got a couple Star Wars series here.
We have Obi-Wan first.
We have Obi-Wan.
And
then we have Andor. Both prequels. So
yeah,
what damage
we
can
definitely
they do
have
with
Ahsoka.
At this point,
tease that maybe Luke shows up in Ahsoka.
That'd be nice.
They teed that up.
And I like the Luke stuff. I love the Empire Strikes Back nods. I wish the fans weren't such an influence, it seems, on what these stories are turning into. I wish the fan service wasn't there, because I honestly don't think fans know what they want. And I wish we just really saw the person who makes modern Westerns, like Robert Rodriguez, doing that. The person like Jon Favreau, who is a Star Wars fan, just be a Star Wars fan. Dave Filoni, he wasn't doing too much fan service in Clone Wars. He was just telling good stories. I want to see these people not, in a vacuum, and just telling the stories they know how to tell. Like I said, these are all incredible storytellers. And I think when the fan service started being influential, this kind of became a kind of lumbering beast that had to veer towards it.
Well, that's season 2 of Mandalorian, right? Because season 1 didn't do it. Season 1, you definitely felt like it was its own separate thing.
And season 2,
so much so we didn't even dream for a second. Even when we were talking about finding a Jedi, we were like, we just assumed, well, it's never going to be Luke Skywalker, you know? Yeah. And honestly, even the Ahsoka was like, wow, they did Ahsoka, and so cool, and a great, it was teed up at the end of Rebels. So I'm for it.
Yeah. Chris Robinson, he says, listen, Ian, we need to stop holding Star Wars to a high standard. It's just a cheesy space opera with space wizards. It's a fun ride overall, but a lot of it misses the mark. I do think a lot of it does miss the mark, but at the same time, it's just a cheesy space opera. Like I think you just described ice pirates. I don't know if you described space like Star Wars. Like I said, there's talent here that's able to tell a good story. It just
what he's right about is there have definitely been installments that very much missed the mark, and there have been installments that didn't. And that's the thing is, and I think universally people felt, particularly season 1 of Mandalorian as it went on, and season 2 really grew, that the Mandalorian was so many people, we've all agreed, like it was, what we always wanted, and this Mandalorian had, some moments that weren't maybe the best, like what you described about, them wasting all that time on building that ship. But for me, that was, they did the same kind of stuff in episodes of The Mandalorian. I'm not saying it's great, scenes like that. I'm just saying it's the kind of thing that they indulge and do. I just think that, I thought what episode 5 showed us, whether it was for you or not, whether you thought that a lot of stuff wasted time or not, it was much more interesting to watch than the 4 episodes before that.
Story was progressing.
It's some
for
of
the first time in 5 episodes, story was progressing.
Listen, the hardest thing that you had with the Book of Boba Fett is here's a character we cared about, and we didn't know why. That's just true. Who is he? How is he rounded out? So what they did, and that was the point for me of doing the flashbacks. The point of those flashbacks was to say there's an emotional component to this character that it, but you didn't really see it. You saw it. You saw it when he was a kid. You saw it in episode 2. So let's remind the audience that exists in that character. And here he is decades later, and he's still that little boy looking for family.
But also use that to introduce the Cad Bane relationship, which
I agree.
is also
I
a
think
mentor.
that would
It's
have
a
been a great
mentorship.
idea. I think that would have served it much better. I think they were trying to do that by throwing out the, hey, guess what? There's a connection here, and they should have shown it in the flashbacks. I think that I absolutely agree with that note. I definitely think that would have been an improvement. It would have resonated. It would have made it work better. And by the way, show Cad Bane in those flashbacks, then show him gun down. What's his name?
Timothy Olyphant's character.
Yeah, I know it.
I got you.
Brain freeze.
I got you.
Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
So have him run down Cobb Vanth because you already he's the badass. I mean, we know from seeing it speaks to fan service. Not doing that flashback means you don't appreciate who Cad Bane is if you haven't watched the previous shows, right?
Which shouldn't be a requirement.
It should. Listen, I know people that didn't watch them, but big Star Wars fans said, like, he was the best in that episode. He came in, he's this badass. It was great. And that's a good argument, but for the sake of being the book of Boba Fett, show that relationship exists.
And I like the idea of a mentor relationship because that's what he should ultimately be at the end of episode 7 to the people of this town. He should be the protector. He should be the person who is leading people by example. He should be protective of people. And if Cad Bane was the person who took over after Jango was killed to kind of show Boba the ropes and show him how to be a bounty hunter, but he was an errant mentor, he was the corrupted mentor, then you do have that circle closed. A lot of wasted real estate here in some of those earlier episodes. Again, when episode 1 ended, I said, wait a minute.
By the way, I mean, maybe it's fan service, but you had a bunch of Trandoshans. Where the hell's Bosk?
You know what? If we start getting too many of the earlier characters,
because we're talking about mentors. Because we're talking about mentors. And it's not clear in Empire, but it is in other sources that Bosk is a mentor for Boba. That Bosk was with him since he was a kid. So I mean, if that would have been interesting. Now that
he did have a lizard go up his nose. He did have a lizard go up his nose. Maybe that's a shout out.
I mean, look, maybe the point of maybe they bring in Bosk later and create some issues with Krrsantan,
Sure.
But
Krrsantan starts to get eroded as well over the course of his appearances. He really let them get the jump on him there in episode 7.
I didn't have the same issue with that as you did. I thought, listen, he was overwhelmed and he still came out of it. I mean,
sure could have used some other soldiers. He had all these credits. Boba Fett was saying at the end of episode 4, he had all these credits he could spend on soldiers.
Yeah,
he hired.
I know, I agree.
He hired 8 people.
Yeah,
he hired 8 people
barely,
and then asked the town to come fight for him for free.
Well, she went off to go get and her one move was Din Djarin. When Fennec goes off, right? That was her one move. That was it. I know where I can get some help. The one move, Din Djarin. Yeah. Get on a ship. You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole lot of other bounty hunters out there. You're a bounty hunter.
Like,
get on the phone, something. Listen, the idea that, what Boba pitched to Fennec Shand was attractive to other experienced bounty hunters. Aren't there more of them?
Yeah, especially if
don't you know them?
They're mercenaries. They want the money. Let's go.
I agree. I love the Mandalorian Armor Trilogy. I think it was a great book. There's a lot of Bosk stuff in there. I mean, there's a lot of places.
Let me bring that up as a podcast. Mike Oliveras, who's such a good dude. He's such a good dude. He runs comic book conventions and Arizona. The dude is just he is a true geek. I love him. They should have peppered some of the Mandalorian Armor book in there that had a lot of Bosk content that would have added some cool
that
off-road
sets
content.
them as major competitors.
Can you explain what that is? The Mandalorian Armor.
So there's a trilogy called the Mandalorian Armor Trilogy of books that now are no longer canon, but we thought they were canon when they came out as books.
They're pre-Disney.
Yes, and they're pre-Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in that, Boba and Bosk are big competitors, versus them having worked together and Bosk having more of a mentor role. And they're really good. It just really gets into the Bounty Hunters Guild stuff, which, and obviously we've seen a bit of that in Mandalorian. They did it differently, but we do see a bit of, the idea of the guild being out there. But frankly, knowing that still exists, I think that would have been really interesting, even in terms of getting help It's a ability to have a whole other, cameo in there. I mean, like, do that
seeing
reach out.
Fennec.
Here's money. The problem with it is,
Yeah.
do you end up in a place of, okay, so it's who has more money? Maybe. But still, I think if money wasn't an issue, they should have had more help. I agree.
Okay.
It's more set pieces, but I think that we should have seen that. And it comes down to the same thing. It's the same thing about the problem with the whole organization. He took over Jabba's organization. Well, what is it? It's a couple of Gamorreans. I mean, where's the organization? They go in, to Jennifer Beals, like, oh, well, pay me. Well, the mayor, pay me. And that's it, Like, that's the collections. And they don't have people to do collections. Like, what you walked in, you killed people. Apparently, they killed other people coming in, but.
What's crazy, when he goes to steal his ship, there's tons of people that are in that palace.
I know.
There's all sorts of squads in that palace that he's got to get around. The palace could not be more empty once he took over.
Right.
He's got a Rancor. And he lets it do a King Kong across half the city that he swore to protect. Again, it's not a reliable protagonist on this one. The conflict between Fett Syndicate and the Bounty Hunters Guild could be a great series, Edwin says. I agree. I think any conflict would have been a good series. There did not seem to be a lot of conflict in this series. There seemed to be a lot of boasting of potential conflict, but a character stubbing his toes through 5 episodes.
You could not feel the conflict in the series?
No. Well, I stopped trusting that there was real conflict when he lets things like the Hutt twins escape after trying to assassinate him, or gets duped multiple times by the Pikes. I stopped thinking there was going to be any conflict when Boba just seemed to be somebody who wasn't up to muster for being a crime boss. I don't think he's got what it takes to be a crime boss, Ian, and I still don't. And I don't think that was established by him letting a Rancor.
You better be careful. You may end up Rancor poodoo for that talk.
It's Bantha poodoo. Rancor poodoo is a little different, but Bantha poodoo for sure.
He let the Bantha go.
I know, he let the Bantha go. He shouldn't have let the Bantha go.
He shouldn't have.
He uses that Bantha a lot. Even after he gets his ship back, he's like, "No."
I love when she called out. Like, well, why? Like, well, well, yeah, but then you're coming back to the freaking planet. Like, you think, where's the Bantha?
Yeah, I'm down. Ian, are we really going to get a second season of this Boba Fett stuff?
I told you, I can't believe I come away from going like, I would rather they didn't do a second season and just, and let Boba Fett show up in the Mandalorian in a different capacity. Mm-hmm. But I think we're going to get another season. And I think it's going to be more about, it's still, somewhat more of the same, but a little bit different because the spice trade's still going on. It's just about getting bigger, the bigger Syndicate, the Crimson Dawn. If they do that, I'd like it to not be about Tatooine. Because, by the way, Jabba's not just Tatooine. It's just his territory. That's where he is. His
whole outer rim.
Jabba, the Hutt's like their organization's elsewhere.
I'd love to see Nar Shaddaa.
But by the way, so again, and speaking of spice, and that's the thing, is Han Solo owed Jabba money because he was worried about getting boarded by the Empire, and he was doing a spice run.
Yes,
he was smuggling spice. Like, that's a big part of Jabba's organization. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, what did Boba inherit if it wasn't that?
Right. Protection for the locals on Tatooine? Is that all it is?
Yeah.
Is it not? Is Tatooine just not where the palace was? Is it not elsewhere?
Yeah.
Is he ambitious? So to me, what a further season should be is actually showing it's a true organization, and it's not only Tatooine and actual conflict with other organizations and dealing with the Republic and dealing with the Bounty Hunters Guild.
Are you interested in that? At this point, are you actually interested in that?
I could be. Saying if that's what it is and they do right by it, that could be really good. Make the same offer you made to Feng Shan to other bounty hunters. Let them be, your regional leaders and things like that. I mean, that can get really interesting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike Oliveira says he should have gone to Nal Hutta to confront the other Hutts. Sure. But he let those twins off without even a slap on the wrist. And Brian Deakel's right. He says maybe Fett should just be managing the public transit system. Yeah, it'd be pretty good. derailed a train.
Again, why is there a train on Tatooine? Where are they going?
Spaceships.
What are they doing?
It has spaceships.
Why are the pikes running? I mean, is it about spice? I don't know. Why?
Maybe it's a discotheque, and they're just playing music, and maybe it is.
When Cobb Vanth takes out those pikes, and there's the one thing of spice, I'm like, I don't get it.
Maybe it's Sandpiercer, and it just goes around the planet, and they can't stop it.
1,000.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Seeing Boba Fett fight his way up like Sandpiercer, and he just does his thing. There was a lot of no. It was messy, Ian. It was very messy.
A lot of it, yeah. Listen, but that's the thing. See, like, I like Krrsantan's in it. I would like them to have actually said, yeah, Krrsantan has a life debt to him. You know, like that was my biggest disappointment in Solo. The life debt thing was an established thing before, and they don't call it out anymore. Yeah. That's right. Pleasure train, we have water. Exactly.
Yeah, a pleasure train on Tatooine. Let's do it. Come on, ride the train. And it's just
even the suggestion that Tatooine used to be this paradise and all that. Like, you know, it could be interesting to get into that and how did it change.
Maybe
is there a way to terraform and bring it back?
Sure.
You know,
Ian, have we turned over every rock? I know I wrote you a book of points.
Maybe. Look, I mean, you know, there's the Mandalorian stuff I'd like to talk about. You know, there's some of the Grogu stuff. I mean, we didn't talk about the idea of Luke giving him that choice. You know, I mean,
we know it's not really a choice. We know he's going to end up with both.
He was going there. Yeah.
They set it up in the beginning of the previous episode when they talked about a Jedi Mandalorian. Like, right. We know it's going to end up happening. There was no tension in that scene.
And that being the point. So doesn't that make Grogu who's prophesied? Doesn't Grogu have to be the one to handle the Darksaber because it's going to take a Jedi to do it?
I'm down.
That makes sense, right?
Well, if he just learns to fight with the blade rather than like a blunt force object worth, like that would have been fine. I think Din can clearly learn to master the Darksaber. It's something that, you know, Moff Gideon did. Like, that's not a big point.
And Sabine Wren did too, but I don't know if
I just, you know, I lost a lot of investment here, personal investment in the going ons. It felt a little bit messy, and I think they have some work to do to clear things up and work back some of the promise of this stuff. You know, I don't need it to happen. I mean, like Chris Robinson said, like, there's ups and downs in every franchise. I hope they do. We'll see, you know. But going forward, I'll watch them. We'll clearly watch these shows. We're fans. And they got some cool stuff. I like writing a Rancor. It went on a little too long. Yeah. I like things like the Ray Harryhausen multi-armed monster that was it's episode 2. I like that stuff. Star Wars has some really cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got to work together. And maybe this was rushed. Maybe I heard that they shot a lot. I heard that the character that was complaining about the mods was supposed to be in 4 episodes, the Stephen Root character, and he was really only in 1 episode. So I heard that this was edited in kind of an aggressive way. So we'll just see what they end up with. We'll see, and I hope that there's more X-Wing pilots out there patrolling the galaxy, because there seems to be 3 from what we can tell. The same dudes just keep showing up and being like, can I see your permit?
Well, you can argue that this is their sector and we're stuck there. You know, seriously,
is this the same this is the same sector that it was in Mandalorian? Bunch of desert planets?
Certainly near Tatooine. It's the Outer Rim. We're not sure, right? I know, because then you have the ice planet, right? Same guys.
Yeah, same guys. No, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think we need new ideas, and the ideas actually have to be lined up right. Like, let's. This one hurt. This one took a dent in the Star Wars promise of the Disney Plus shows. But we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm always excited about this stuff. I'm always excited about fandom. I'm always excited about these shows. Sometimes they don't deliver. It's okay. I'm not the freaking law of this town. I'm not Cobb Vanth. Who cares what Jonathan thinks? I want people to enjoy this stuff. Hopefully they did.
It seemed like a lot of people I talked to didn't actually realize that was Cobb Vanth and that he's getting modded as well as being in the back of the tag.
Yeah, the tag is Cobb Vanth getting modded.
Yeah.
rock and roll. I will tell you, like,
I
it's
would have
cool.
liked to have just seen him earlier, but okay.
Sure.
So we're gonna get Timothy Oliphant back. Great.
So, which means we're gonna get Tatooine back, which means
Well,
grand.
it actually doesn't have to mean that. I think it likely does. But my point is that they could the way they ended this, they could easily not do another season, and the characters exist, and he's going to show up again somewhere. But I do agree. I think it is in a Book of Boba Fett season 2.
Well, let's hurry up.
I
and
do
get some
wonder if we
Thrawn.
see any of that in Mandalorian season 3 or not.
I want to see some Admiral Thrawn. That's all I want at the
that's
moment.
in Ahsoka.
I know it is, but I want it.
Ezra Bridger.
Ian, closing thoughts before we set our sights to the next Ian special, which is coming up in a week.
My closing thoughts are: while I was disappointed in a lot of it, there was still a lot I enjoyed. The fan service, I fully admit, some of it really worked on me. But still a lot of it was a lot of fun. But I think they can do better.
Yes, I think they can do better, and they have done better, and yes. I believe they will do better again. So I'm not bailing on I'm not getting rid of my Star Wars tattoo. I don't have a Star Wars tattoo, but I'm definitely not bailing on my Star Wars stuff. Okay, and the next time
I'm still wearing my Mythosaur.
Next time I see you, dude, it's in a week when we talk Peacemaker season 1.
All right.
Like, that's a show I've been enjoying. And then Ian, right after that, guess what? We got the Batman. So you're going to be back on Geekscape really pretty quickly. I am going to have other Geekscape episodes interspersed in there, Geekscape. You're not just going to get Ian specials. So again, please share the show with your friends, especially on the podcast apps. If you're they're the mods. I have to go out there and join the biker gang right now. If you are listening on the podcast app, thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying this. We're going to have a couple guests on the show, but we'll be interspersing these Ian specials in there because we have the Batman. We have the Peacemaker season 1. We have what Ian and I have been circling as what we're so excited for Morbius. Let's go. We got a lot coming up on Geekscape, so I'm excited about it. Our numbers have been great, and there were a ton of people in the chat today, and that really makes me super excited, especially on a Saturday when I don't expect to see any of y'all. Keep the comments coming. Keep talking amongst yourselves. Go share this conversation over on Facebook at the Geekscape Forever group or on the Geekscape page on Facebook, or keep talking on YouTube. We're all over, so search for Geekscape. You'll be a part of it. You can follow Ian on Twitter at Ian L. Kerner. That is his Twitter handle, and you can also find him on our Geekscape Forever page and Geekscape Forever Facebook group, and talk to Ian there and be like, Ian, I have a bone to pick with you. You could be Ian's personal Cad Bane and wander 7 days in the desert to have a dramatic opening and see if you get the first shot on Ian or not. All right, Geekscape, this is all I got. Geekscape Forever, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time. Ian, I think this is where we say peace.
Peace.